And here we are, folks. Good evening. Happy Halloween to everybody. And you guys are now part of the 2025 B.Hive Productions Halloween special. It's I believe it's our second Halloween special. I don't remember doing it other than last year. So I actually don't think I've been too serious about reading to you guys um, until last year. I think last year this kind of started being a thing. We're gonna wait for a little bit for everybody to show up. Do 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 do. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Anybody with kids doing any trick or treating or whatever with them tonight? I figure 8 o'clock's a good time because usually people are done trick or treating by now. Only the diehard teenagers are usually out now. Um, usually out now trick or treating. There we go. Jessica's first one in, as always. It's either her or Kevin. One of the two. It's either one of you two that usually show up first. Um, Jessica, you handing out treats for trick or treat this year? Top of the scary night to you, Kevin. Hopefully you don't sleep tonight. That's my goal tonight is to make sure you don't sleep. So I was reading up on werewolves, and there is a medical condition. Let's see, called hypertrichosis. Some modern researchers have tried to explain the reports of werewolf behavior with recognized medical conditions. In 1963, Dr. Lee Ellis of Guy's Hospital in London wrote a paper entitled On Porphyria and the Etiology of Werewolves, in which he argues that historical accounts on werewolves could have been referring to victims of congenital porphyria, stating how the symptoms of photosensitivity, reddish teeth, and psychosis could have been grounds for accusing a person of being a werewolf. Now, this is argued against by Woodward, who points out how mythological werewolves were almost invariably portrayed as resembling true wolves, and that their human forms were rarely physically conspicuous as porphyria victims. Others have pointed out that the possibility of historical werewolves having been people with hypertrichosis, a hereditary condition manifesting itself in excessive hair growth. Woodward dismissed the possibility as the rarity of the disease ruled it out from happening on a large scale, as werewolf cases were in medieval Europe. Woodward suggested rabies as the origin of werewolf beliefs, claiming remarkable similarities between the symptoms of that disease and some of the legends. Woodward focused on the idea that being bitten by a werewolf could result in the victim turning into one, which suggests the idea of transmittable diseases like rabies. However, the idea that lycanthropy could be transmitted in this way is not part of the original myths and legends, and only appears in relatively recent beliefs. Lycanthropy can also be met with as the main content of a delusion. For example, the case of a woman has been reported who, during episodes of acute psychosis, complained of becoming four different species of animals. So there you go. Hey, Chuck, welcome. Ali is hoping I sleep. He might bite you. So yeah, that's kind of what our main character is suffering from, is a mental condition. Um, he thinks that he's a werewolf, and Yeah, and he's going to. Well, I don't want to ruin the story for you. Anyhow, you guys know how tonight's story came about. There were four prompts that I gave you guys, and you guys, for the most part, voted on the serial killer who believed he was a werewolf. Took me about a week and a half to get it all written out and finished. I looked it over this morning, and I think I'm pretty happy with it. So, um, the setting is in Wilmar, Minnesota. Why I don't know. Just I don't know. For some reason, something told me that this guy worked at the Genio Turkey Factory, and yeah, it just kind of spawned from there. But so yeah, that's how this story came about. Much like the dollhouse from last year, if you guys remember that one. Um, this will join the dollhouse. Um, in my new horror anthology. Not sure when that's coming out. Hopefully by the end of this year. Who's to say? I always try to get for a Halloween release, but I've just had too many distractions this year. If not my health, then it was the EMT thing and sister's wedding and all that other stuff. So I'm off my writing schedule, but at least I'm back writing again. So, and I thank you guys for that because you guys kind of got me going. Um, so yeah, last night's um, last night's toe tapping Thursday, uh, we were doing really well, I thought, and better than we have been. And then all of a sudden, Facebook just kicked us right off and shut us down. So, which really sucked because we did the REM's "It's the End of the World as We Know It," and and for a song that we'd never played before, we actually did really well with it, I thought. And Facebook said, "Nope, you're off." So kicked us right off. So anyhow, this platform really it's disappointing because it makes it really hard to be a creator. Not that I want to go viral or anything like that, but just the simple things that I try to produce and put out to you guys um kind of get shut down every once in a while because of this stuff. But yeah, too bad you didn't get to hear that. So Bobby and I might try it again next week. We'll see. He was really nervous about wanting to do it last night. We played it once through, and he's just like, "Oh, I don't know, I don't know about that one." But I made him do it. That is what happened, Chuck. Yeah, we got the plug yanked on us. We were off air for a while, and then finally I chimed back in, and we did one last song. We did, I think, Little Red Riding Hood, and then we closed it up. But yeah, I hate it when stuff like that happens. But what can you do? I need to write a story about badgers and bees. You know, somehow they help out the zombie apocalypse or something like that. I did think about putting them on in this story, um, but things didn't go the way I thought they were going to go in this story, so um, they got booted. But yeah. So anyway, now that I've got everybody's attention, and it looks like most everybody's here. I don't know where Bobby and Beth went, um, but they'll have to tune in later. Again, I want to say thank you guys for bringing your friends in here and sharing these events. It's really helped bring in a lot more people. My videos have grown according to my analytics. They've grown um, like well over 100%. So that's good. Getting a lot of viewership. They may not be saying anything or whatever, but they are viewing it, and they may not watch the whole video, but they watch some of it. So that's good. That's a good start. That's a seed being planted. as they say. All right. Well, I think we ought to get into this because I have this cold sneaking up on me, and I'm holding it at bay right now with some Dayquil that I took and some orange juice. And I've emptied out my nose, and I got some pink lemonade here to help me out in case my throat gets scratchy. So, without further ado, let's hop in. The Wolf of the Red Rose. She had spent most of the evening on her phone, looking up once in a while to be polite. Sometimes Alan would have to repeat his question, and she would smile, look up, and either nod or just say yes. It was a nice dinner by Foot Lake, a small barn grill, but the burgers were amazing. And this was about the only eatery by the lake. Alan wanted to make an impression. The only problem was she wasn't making one. They had met on Tinder. Their first date was the typical date you'd expect on Tinder. They met for drinks, made out in his car, and ended up having sex at her place. She thought he was an amazing lover, but she really didn't connect with him on an emotional or intellectual level. But he had invited her out on a second date, and here they were. She wanted the sex part, just not all of this conversation. He droned on and on about movies, the ones she had no interest in. He bragged of his trivial knowledge about them, and she was sure he read the Wikipedia synopsis of every title and read up on the trivia section of the International Movie Database pages. Carrie, he said. She looked up and thought perhaps he had said her name about 12 times before it registered with her that he was trying to ask her a question. I'm sorry, what? She answered, putting her phone down. I said. He bit his lip in a peculiar way, as if he were trying to stop certain words from coming out of his mouth. I said, hey, why don't we take a walk by the lake shore and maybe head back to my place? Uh, she looked down at her phone again and then up at him. Why don't we just head to your place? Maybe we could watch some movie or something. He blinked a few times, as if his brain were resetting itself, and then he smiled, showing more teeth than he had ever had before. The smile looked different somehow. A movie? He said. Why, that would be wonderful. Okay, maybe we could watch, what was the title of the one you were just talking about? Rocky Horror? Yeah, that one. But I'm not really into scary movies. It's not a horror film. It's a musical. Well, whatever. I'm sure it'll be fine. As they drove along the lake shore, the moon glistened off the surface, the reflection rippling with the waves. The moon was full and the sky cloudless. Something danced in his chest, as if butterflies were rustling inside his rib cage. It was an energy that he felt whenever he looked up at the great bluish white orb. It made his heart race and his skin itch. His senses seemed to come alive when the moon was at its fullest. She looked disappointed as they pulled off onto a dirt driveway that looped around a grove of trees, and then, as a clearing came into view, a run-down old trailer home sat in the middle of the dooryard. There was a tall pole with a flickering lamp on, standing next to the trailer. Home sweet home, he said, shutting off the car. Do do you live out here alone? She asked. No, I've got a couple of roommates. You'll meet very soon. There was a hint of fear lingering in her gut, thinking maybe there was a group of greasy trailer trash rednecks waiting awaiting Alan to bring home something they could all gangbang. But her fear disappeared when a German shepherd and an Alaskan husky came trotting around the corner of the home. They barked and the husky howled. Alan scolded them to stay down, and he smiled at her. I want you to meet Gus, my shepherd. He scrubs one behind the ear. And this is Quinn, the husky. They're my roommates. She knelt down and she was greeted with kisses from both. They seemed to be well behaved dogs. Carrie wasn't much of a dog person, but this was just for one night. The trailer was surrounded by rose bushes. They were fragrant and filled her nose. Inside, there was an even heavier smell of roses, but this was more of a chemical smell, like from scented candles or room deodorizers. Do you want a drink? He asked as he walked into the kitchen. Sure, she said, taking in the room. It was dim, almost lit only by candles. There were movie posters framed on every wall. His decor was a little gothic, but she could dig it. Made him seem mysterious, almost dangerous. He handed her a glass of red wine. As she sipped it, he handed her a single red rose. She accepted it, careful not to prick her fingers on the thorns. She looked up, and there was something different about the expression on his face. It was predatory somehow, and this both frightened her and turned her on simultaneously. As long as he doesn't talk, she thought to herself, this might go perfectly. He grabbed her on either side of her face and pulled her close to him so that their lips were almost touching. He was breathing hard and his stare never left hers. Will you give your throat to the wolf of the red roses? He asked her in a harsh whisper. His heart was hammering now, as if his heart were trying to punch its way out of his chest. His vision got blurry, and it seemed his sense of smell and taste was raw and alive. Saliva production in his mouth went off the charts. Yes, she said in a quiet little whisper, and they kissed like two angry animals. There was too many teeth involved in that kiss. He bit her lips a few times, and she moaned. She felt him pulling, no, clawing her dress off. She was excited and cried out with every rough movement he had made upon her. The coppery flavor of blood entered her mouth, and she mashed her lips to his, and they made their way back to the couch. Upon landing on it with her naked buttocks, she realized that it wasn't black faux leather at all, but plastic. Odd, she thought. But maybe he's into baby oil. Maybe some other kink. He nibbled on every part of her body, and she longed for him to finish this act. She had a need to be released from this buildup. He pulled away from her, growling and shaking. Alan, she said. He was curled on his hands and feet, itching his skin all over. Oh, God, she thought. He's tweaking out on meth or something. He pulled off his clothing, and his hands were curled like he had arthritis. He stared up at the ceiling and howled in a deep guttural moan, and then curled into a ball again. Alan? She asked again. Are you a... His head raised up. His lips curled back in a snarl. His nostrils were flaring and then he growled at her. Something even more disturbing. There was some sort of prosthetic in his mouth. They were like plastic vampire teeth you would wear on Halloween, but these were made of metal. They reflected the candlelight. She sat up and tried to stand, and he leapt upon her. She was no longer hot and sweaty. She had gone cold and rigid. He swiped at her face with his gnarled hands, and she felt something warm spray from her neck. He raised his hand again, and she noticed there were metal claws on his fingertips. Dear God, was her thought. He sliced my neck open. He sliced my. Another swipe, and her left eye filled with blood. Before she could scream, he dove into her throat, and she felt those metal fangs crush her windpipe, and suddenly she was breathing frantically from a hole in her throat. It quickly filled with blood, and she felt him tear pieces off of her before she drowned. Oh my God! She screamed in her head. Oh my God, he's eating me! He's eating me! And that's the end. No, just kidding. Hey, Steph. Steph's here. That's awesome. Jesus on a crutch, Detective Roberts said. That's 8 now. She fished out a cigarette from her breast pocket of her coat and debating putting it in her mouth. She had promised her husband she'd quit, but after the series of murders that were happening in Wilmar, under her nose, she popped it into her lips. Are we going to call the feds? Her partner, Detective Woods, asked. He was lazy and hadn't been much help other than another set of hands. He was looking at retirement in a few months and was just going through the motions, if even that. But don't have much of a choice now, do we? She said, lighting her smoke. I'm guessing they've already got an agent on the way here after the last murder. Since January, every full moon has been a murder. Same M.O. A body torn of its flesh, wrapped in plastic sheets. There usually isn't much left of the corpse for a skeleton and a few pieces of meat. They've all been women, usually young. The killer always leaves a red rose on every corpse. Well, speak of the devil, Woods says as a Ford Taurus pulls up to the crime scene. One agent gets out of the vehicle. He's young, maybe the late side of his 20s. He's wearing his windbreaker and the obligatory aviator shades. Roberts hated him already. Well, what have we got here, detectives? He said. I'm Agent Burns from the Brainerd branch office. Well, Agent Burns, she started, we've had 8 murders since January. I'm sure you've already looked at the files on them, so I won't bore you with the details. This is our latest victim. Any ID? The BCA is coming up from St. Paul this afternoon. They'll get her DNA matched up by morning. You think it's a serial murder? What else could it be? She pulled one last drag off her cigarette and chucked it away from the crime scene. Is this where she was murdered, you think? Burns asked. No, she answered. There's no blood around, other than the avian variety. They were standing in the lot of the Plenio turkey plant, one of the main employers of the Wilmar area. The body was found by one of the night shift workers while they were out for their smoke break. Any witnesses? Burns asked. A Carlos Lopez, Roberts answered. Night shift worker. Said he found her while he was out smoking. Agent Burns looked at the break area, 25 feet from where they were standing, and then back at the mangled mess that laid in the plastic. Did you guys question Lopez? He asked. Patrol brought him to the station for questioning, Roberts said. Do you think he's legal? What do you mean? You know, papers? Should we put a call into ICE? Are you kidding me right now? I've got 8 dead girls in this town. And you're worried about immigration status? Agent Burns gave her a condescending look. How many illegals you think we got working at this plant here, detective? Illegals bring drugs, sex crimes go up, violent crimes go up. Did you think once that maybe it's the immigration status that has 8 dead girls in your town? Roberts pulled out another cigarette and didn't think twice about lighting it. I'll question Lopez, Burns said, and I'm putting in a call to ICE. I'll get every undocumented worker here and we'll interrogate each and every one of them. Are you here to help me solve a murder case or get your face on the cover of the Tribune? She spat. Well, what else have you got, Detective Roberts? The Wilmer PD didn't have squat, just a year full of dead girls. Yeah, that's what I thought, Burns smiled. Hope you polished up on your Spanish. Hey, thanks, Bobby. Thanks for the stars. I appreciate that. And welcome. Had to honk my nose here. All right. Let's get back into it. Alan worked the day shift at the Plenio Turkey Factory. He had since he was 16, and he was 32 now. Since the first time he ripped apart a live turkey on the kill floor, the beast had awakened in him. No, it wasn't the policy to rip birds apart at Plenio, but when the boss is away, he had hoped someone from his shift would find his kill. That was the thrill of it. Sure enough, 2 hours into his shift, one of those migrant workers went out for their first smoke break, and there she was. At least, what was left of her. The rest of what was carried back was in his stomach. Pieces of sinew was still stuck in his teeth. The cops arrived, and a wave of anxiety rippled through him. It was intoxicating. The female cop was getting frustrated. He could tell just by her demeanor. And now that the federale showed up, she looked even more flustered. Something about her made him hungry. Perhaps the beast next kill will be a cop. Another wave of anxiety. Would she taste different than the others? Probably not. They all tasted the same, salty. The consistency varied from victim to victim, but the taste remained the same, like a slab of ham, long pig as the Fijians called it, or puaka balava. It wasn't the taste, really, that turned him on. It was the thrill of the kill. The wolf demanded sacrifice. It demanded to be satiated, not just with meat and blood, but with the hunt. He started long ago with the turkeys, pulling them apart with his hands, the warmth of their blood dripping from his claws. Soon he was trapping animals, cats mostly. There were plenty of them in Wilmer, mostly strays, but once in a while, a domesticated cat would wind up its way around his ankle as he was walking around. A year passed, and he tried using his teeth. He had trapped a squirrel in his grove, and when he finally worked himself up to it, he bit into its chest. It clawed and scratched at his face, chittering in high pitched wails until the damage he had done was too much, and it died in his clutches. Gradually, he made his way up to drinking blood of his kill. He remembers deer hunting with a few friends he had from the factory, and when he had killed his first buck, they told him he had to drink the blood of his first kill. They didn't know that this was not his first kill, but he played along, and his curiosity pushed him forward. He stabbed a fillet knife into the deer's throat. A single breath puffed out of its nostrils. He filled a plastic cup with the steaming blood that poured from the wound, and he drank. He puked it up at first. His friends laughed, but he grabbed the cup and slammed the rest of it, finishing that he had bit into the neck of the deer and then tore it open, drinking greedily from its torn artery. His friends got silent and backed away from him. It was the last time he was invited to do anything with them, but that was okay. They never felt like a pack he belonged to. He couldn't connect to them, and he felt like an outsider in their midst. It wasn't until he adopted Gus and Quinn that he felt like he had a true connection with anyone. Both dogs looked to him as the alpha, following him loyally and obeyed his every command. They patiently waited for scraps from his kills. Alan honestly believed he was possessed by the spirit of a wolf. He had an obsession with the hunting patterns of wolves, but he was even more enthralled with the idea of being a wolf. He had heard of cultists who practiced the belief of the loup-garou, the werewolf, the lichens. He had looked far and wide for these groups, these packs of like-minded people. There were online forums, group pages, etc., but after inquiring with a few of them, they all seemed like posers. He wanted something real, and looked on the dark web, leaving messages for anyone to contact him. Then he decided to start hunting humans. He knew they'd be harder to kill, and that is what excited him the most. He modified some prosthetics he wore on his fingers, tipped with straight edge razors, and veneers he custom with metallic canines that he kept sharpened to a deadly edge. He had severed his tongue the first time out with them, which gave his speech a little bit of a lisp. He lived in a college town, ripe with young, vulnerable co-eds. Using the dating apps, he was able to lure in his prey easily. But the female cop, she livened the hunger inside of him. She would be a challenge, and perhaps the notoriety he was gaining from his hunts in the last year, the groups would find him if he had hunted a cop. Something within him growled. Detective Roberts was home on the couch with her cat Beans and her husband Kevin, who were watching a movie. She couldn't really concentrate on it because of the investigation and all the loose ends it had brought to her analytical mind. Kevin had suggested they watch a light-hearted movie to get her mind off of it for a while. It was well-intentioned, but he didn't understand the gravity of her situation. She was the lead detective in a town full of possible victims, and it was her job to make sure this killer was caught before any more of them died. The phone rang. It was Woods. "Interrupting anything?" he asked. "I wish," she said, regretting the implications of that answer. "What's up?" "Burns got a lead from Lopez." She was quiet for a moment, stroked her cat, and then got up from the couch. Kevin paused the movie, and she motioned for him to continue watching it. "You gotta be kidding me," she said, and put a cigarette in her mouth and went out the front door to smoke it. "That racist piece of shit got him to talk?" "I'm guessing he threatened deportation," Woods said, bemused. "Either way, he's got corroborating witnesses who can vouch." "Well, shit." Did the BCA come up with anything from the crime scene? They did, but they gave everything they've got to Burns. Fuck. Okay. Are you in the office? Nope. I'm not as dedicated as you. I'm having my fourth Manhattan at Cabrone's bar. What a surprise. Okay, I'm guessing Burns is up at the office. I'm heading over now and have a chat with him. Good luck, partner. I'm going to have a few more and hopefully take this lovely young thing sitting next to me home for a roll in the hay. She grimaced. Gross. Talk to you in the morning. Agent Burns was indeed at the precinct. He stood in front of a white marker board that had photos of the 8 dead girls taped to it. Lines were drawn to various locations he had on a map below them. There were notes written on little 3M post-it notes. Need coffee? She said, walking in and setting her purse on the table. Burns kept his eyes on the board. I'm on my third cup. Help yourself. I just made a pot. After returning with a cup of coffee, she stood beside Burns and looked at what he was studying. What have you got? She asked. I heard Lopez open up to you. Yes, he did, he said. He had some fortuitous information. Fortuitous, she thought to herself. Who the fuck uses that word? Turns out his work visa ran out 3 months ago, he continued, which gave me leverage to ask him whatever I wanted. I can imagine. He has a wife and a child, a 3-year-old daughter. He'd be willing to do or say anything not to interrupt the flow of his life right now. She thought he had an odd way of speaking, but analytical minds do think differently than most average people. So what did you get? She asked. Did he do it? Burns chuckled to himself. No, he said, but he did fill in some gaps. Gaps? The BCA came back with some evidence. First off is this. He handed her a clear plastic bag with a Ziploc on it. There was what looked like animal hair in it. Some of them were white and black, and a clump of brown and black. It was found on the remains of our Jane Doe, he said. The lab said it was a mix of German Shepherd and Alaskan Husky. So you're telling me dogs did this? She asked. No, I'm telling you that wherever she was killed, there were dogs present. They may have eaten part of her remains, who knows, but they were there. But forensics did come up with something even more puzzling. The marks on our victim look as if some sort of canine tore her apart. There are claw marks on what's left of the flesh, and there are also bite marks on some of her bones. Jesus fucking Christ. But the bite marks did not come from a human mouth. An actual canine's bite mark would be a little more narrow. The bite marks on our victim were rounded and more apt to be human. So, whoever's out there doing this, she ran the thought through her head first, is a, a werewolf? I mean, I know that sounds stupid, but the murders happen on a full moon and this new evidence. Burns laughed again. Whoever this is wants us to think it's a werewolf. But no, you and I both know that's improbable. Also, I don't understand why there's a red rose with each of his victims. It's kind of his signature, she said. That's why I figured we're dealing with a psycho and not just some run-of-the-mill murderer. The calling card, sure, but why a rose? There's usually some significance of leaving something like that. So where does Lopez fit into all of this? Well, he claims to work with someone at the Plenio factory. Said the guy's a little off, keeps to himself, doesn't have a whole lot of friends there. That doesn't automatically mean that he's. I spoke with management, and he's had a few disciplinary actions taken against him from a few years back, Burns interrupted. What's what sort of issues did they have? It seems when he first started, he was found in the turkey pens, pulling them apart with his bare hands. Jesus. He had been caught twice doing that. So they moved him into processing and haven't had issues with him since. We got a name on that? Burns handed her a manila folder with a driver's license photo on it. He had black, slicked back hair, shoulder length, and dark, foreboding eyes. He looked a little dangerous, but in a handsome way. Alan Stoneway, Burns said. Lives out in the country. Huh. A white guy. Are you going to bring him in? I thought maybe you and your partner, Woods, is it? She nodded. Thought maybe the two of you could go out and talk to him. Just get a feel for him. If he's our guy, then we can get a warrant and bring him in. When's the next full moon? Are you nervous, detective? There was a smile on his face she wanted to slap off. If he's our guy, she said, finishing her coffee, then I'd rather have him in a cell before the full moon turns full. How's everybody doing? Y'all with me? Y'all with me? All right. Just got to check on you, make sure you guys didn't die. That's important. You know. A notification dinged on his phone. He lifted his iPhone out of his pocket. Lisa on Bumble wants to connect, it read. Bumble was one of the many apps Alan used to find his prey. It was a dating app, but left the power in the woman's hands. Like Tinder, you swiped right or left if you liked or disliked the profile. If you swiped right on someone who also swiped right, it was the woman's choice to contact you or not. It was clever, and he was hoping for this. Finding a prey who felt safe was perfect. Lisa was beautiful. Her profile picture captivated him. She was close to his age, long black hair, brown, almost black eyes, and full lips. He slurped at the saliva that was beginning to drip from the corner of his mouth. He would respond back with something clever. Bide his time until the next full moon. He had 3 weeks. He clicked respond, and that's when he saw the red and blue beacons flashing through the window of the factory. Shit, he thought to himself. A small panic rose in his guts, and he relished it. Are they here for me? There were no warnings or announcements. He could see through the windows that it wasn't just one squad car, but several vehicles, box trucks and SUVs and armored vans. The doors to the factory floor were kicked open, and an army of armed personnel came in. Several of his Mexican co-workers began to run towards the back doors. Hands in the air and down on your knees, came a voice through a megaphone. Department of Homeland Security and Immigration. Several kneeled with their hands raised. They were taken down and zip-tied. Others who had run off were cut off by other masked officers coming in from the back. Alan raised his hands weakly, knowing full well they weren't here for him, and slowly knelt at his station. He was correct. Several officers ran past him and tackled down another running coworker. He attempted to stand back up, but one of the agents stopped by him and pointed his rifle at him. "Stay down!" he shouted. Allen knelt back down onto the floor, keeping his hands in the air. The thrill of a gun pointed at him made his skin itch, and his heart thudded heavily in his chest. The brutality of the agents excited him. Watching the butt of rifles knock teeth free from protesting coworkers, the wrenching of wrists struggling with being strapped, the crack of wooden sticks on bone were like an angelic choir singing to the beast inside of him. The officer, standing next to him, slung his rifle over his shoulder and grabbed at the ID badge on his lanyard. He read it and began to walk backwards. "Stay down until we've cleared the area," the officer barked, and then walked towards his fellow officers to help apprehend anyone else that was resisting. When the agents left, the factory was bare. Even the supervisors were sparse. They had reserved themselves to their offices. Allen slowly stood up, looked around, and decided he should go home for the day. He guessed he'll be working doubles when the smoke clears, so he wanted to take advantage of the recoup time. Detective Roberts pulled into the parking lot of the Plenio factory. Several immigration and HSA vehicles were leaving. "Son of a bitch," she spat. "That fuck called ICE." "Well," said Detective Woods, "he did say he was gonna." She shot him a look that said, "Thanks, you're a big help." Roberts pulled up, Agent Burns on her phone, and pressed the phone icon. "Well, that was quick," he said on the other side. "What did you find out?" "You're fucking funny," she said with a touch of sarcasm. "You still called your Gestapo squad even after we narrowed down our suspect?" "If by Gestapo you mean the Immigration and Customs Enforcement, then yes, I did. It's my duty, and yours, Detective. If people are here illegally, it's our job as law enforcement to enforce those laws. And it wasn't we who narrowed down the possible suspect. It was me." "Well, I'm not going to debate semantics with you, Agent. You want credit for this shit show? You're welcome to it. I think the chance of this Mr. Stoneway being present after this raid are pretty slim." "Well, then go to his address, Detective Roberts. The address is in his file. I doubt immigration arrested him. He's not undocumented, nor is he Mexican." She hung up and parked in visitors' parking. As usual, Wood said he'd stay in the car while she went to find Stoneway. The front desk lady looked like a deer in headlights. She was clearly upset, and the sight of another cop wasn't helping. "Detective Roberts," she said, flashing her badge that hung around her neck. "Is there someone in management I can speak to?" "Uh, police," the receptionist stuttered. They were all already here." "Different cops. I'm with Wilmar PD, and I'm not looking for undocumented peoples." "Oh, sorry. Um, one, minute." She picked up the line nervously and paged production supervision. 10 minutes later, a nervous fat man in a tie and thick glasses came to the front desk. Yes. Can I help you?" He was trying to produce a pleasant smile. "Look," Robert said plainly, "I know you guys all got the bejesus scared out of you by the squad of headhunters, but I'm here on a different case. So just relax. I'm looking for an employee of yours named—" She was bad at first names and had to look at her file. "Allen," she said. "Allen Stoneway?" "Of course," the supervisor said. Trish, can you page Alan to come to the front office, please? She did, and they both nervously stared at Roberts while they waited for Alan to appear. After 15 minutes, she paged him again. The supervisor excused himself and said he would go back and look for him. Roberts wished she could step out and have a smoke, but then Woods walked in, surprising her. What the fuck? He said. I could have read Lord of the Rings and watched the entire trilogy by now. What's the fucking holdup? Well, ain't you a ball of joy? She says back. You got a hot date? I just want to get this shit wrapped up. You got a couple of months left, partner. The supervisor returned with a scared look on his face. I couldn't find him, he said. I checked everywhere. Did you check the shitter? Woods asked. Look at you participating, Roberts thought. I I checked. I checked everywhere. Guess we'll head to his house, Woods said regretfully. The two detectives turn and leave. The two employees take a deep sigh after the door closes. Oh, that's right. You got a new kitten. After Beth said no more animals. Ollie is looking at me kind of funny. Is he, Kevin? Yeah, I'm here trying to keep up. All right. All right. Glad you guys are doing well. All right. Here we go. They drove past the driveway 3 times. The 911 sign was covered by sumac bushes, and the surrounding bur oaks swallowed the entrance to the in various fall colors. Google fucking Maps can kiss my ass, Woods spouted as he turned into the gravel driveway. It was dusk, but the canopy of trees made it seem like perpetual night. The only light source came from the dooryard lamppost that stood crooked next to an old trailer house. I feel like we pulled up onto the Ed Gein farm, he said. Fucking A. Oh, come on, partner, Robert said, patting his hand. I'll protect you from the big bad wolf. You got your silver bullets packed? When they got out of the car, they heard a low, grinding growl come from somewhere beyond the trailer home. Another sound, a yip from some other animal. Fuck this, Woods said, and opened his car door. Roberts pulled out a revolver and pulled the hammer back. The rustle of leaves echoed in the dooryard, and she raised her gun towards the sound. Woods drew his own weapon and pointed it in the same direction. Is there a fucking pack of 'em? Woods definitely looked spooked, and his hand was jittery on the handle of his Glock. 2 dogs, a German Shepherd and an Alaskan Husky, sprinted around the house and ran towards them. Stop! Roberts yelled, and both dogs stopped immediately, their tails wagging vigorously as they sat awaiting the next command. Woods, put your gun down, she hollered over to him. I'm gonna fug them. I'm gonna plug them fucking motherfuckers, he belted. Please don't, a man said from the small iron steps of the trailer home. They're harmless. Detective Woods put his gun down, and Roberts followed suit. Noting the breed of the dogs and recalling the evidence Burns shared with her the night before. Wilmar PD, Roberts said, showing her badge. I'm Detective Roberts, and this is my partner, Detective Woods. How can I help you, detectives? The man said, not taking his eyes off Roberts. She didn't like the way the man was looking at her. It was longingly and a little predatory. Are you Alan Stoneway? She asked. I am, Detective Roberts, he said, and began to itch his forearms. Why don't you show us some ID? Woods said. The man didn't take his eyes off Roberts. Well, of course. My wallet is in my other pants. I just got home from work. I can go in and grab it. May we come in with you? She asked. Please, do. The dogs gave a little growl as Woods walked past them. Fuck off, Cujo, he spat. I see your partner isn't a dog person, Alan said to Roberts. They are quite harmless. They don't seem to, they don't seem to be to me. Hmm. That's usually a red flag if a dog doesn't like you. They say dogs can see a person's soul. I guess they got your ticket, Woods, Roberts joked. Alan gave a forced laugh, and Woods muttered something under his breath. Your ID? Woods spat as they walked into the trailer. The place looked like something out of a chic 80s vampire movie. It was dimly lit with candles. Everything was mostly black or a deep crimson red. You'll have to excuse me, Alan said. My work pants are in the bedroom. Roberts had scanned the trailer home from the outside and knew that this was the only door out, and all the windows were louvered so small that they weren't able to crawl out. She nodded, and Alan went into the back of the trailer, where his room was. This is our guy, Woods said. From the fucking dogs all the way to the goddamn rose bushes everywhere. I know, Robert said under her breath. As soon as he shows the ID, and we've got positive proof he's Alan Stoneway, we'll cuff him. The beast's heart was thudding in his chest. The cop was here, in his lair, and her scent was grand. He wanted to take her now, taste her. But could the beast come out before the moon was full? He didn't know. His skin began to itch. They were here to take him, and he would surely be in a cage before the next full moon. So maybe this was his last chance to feed on the cop. Maybe his last chance to feed, period. Could he feed on his fellow prisoners? There was a wooden box on a vanity. It was a puzzle box where he had to slide certain pieces a certain way in order to access the actual drawer that held the contents inside. Nervously, he maneuvered the pieces until something shiny glinted back at him. His skin itched again, and he thought of the cop's flesh, made his sweat bead out on his forehead, and it made him breathe harder. The beast could come out, full moon or not, but he would have to disable the fat cop before he made a meal of the female cop. Roberts was her name. Mr. Stoneway? Roberts called down the darkened hallway. Are you having trouble locating your wallet? There was no answer. Mr. Stoneway, we're going to have to come back there if you don't answer us. Fuck this freak, Wood said, and drew his gun and pushed past Roberts and went down the hall to the bedroom door. Stoneway! Open this fucking door! There was no answer. Woods tried the doorknob, and it didn't budge. A few more bangs on the thin wooden door, and nothing. I'm going to kick this door open, Woods yells and takes a step back. He pivots his hips, and the heel of his foot connects with the door near the doorknob. Part of the door splinters, and the rest of it swings wide open. The next few minutes went in slow motion in Robert's mind's eye. There was a deep growl from inside the room. What the fuck is, Woods said. There was a tearing sound, and her partner sounded like he was gurgling. There was a flash of light and then a bang. A bullet whizzed through the thinner trailer roof. Woods! she yelled and began to run forward with her gun drawn. Another tearing sound accompanying a horrible low growl, and Woods let out a wet scream and fell to the ground. Fuck! She shouted. Woods, what the fuck is going? It was dark, and the only thing she could really see is a glint of what looked like teeth, metallic teeth, and they were getting closer, snapping open and closed. Before she could point her gun at whatever was coming for her, something slashed out at her hand and opened up the flesh of her forearm. She screamed out and felt the warmth of her own blood leaving her arm and spilling to the floor. The gun, still tightly in her hand, went off, and in the brief flash of the muzzle, she saw Alan. He was naked and bearing those fake metallic teeth. He was coming for her, and she was having a hard time operating her hand that was holding the gun. Dear God, she screams in her head. He slashed the nerves of my arm. I can barely feel my hand. She was trying to run backwards. She didn't dare turn her back on him. She tripped on an area rug that joined the hallway with the living room and rolled onto the floor. Alan was on top of her now. She tried to point the gun at him, and he pinned her arms down and dug his claws into her wound. He howled to the ceiling. She could have sworn she heard his dogs answer back. What is he doing? It's not the full moon. He's gonna kill me if I can't shoot my gun. Dear God, he's gonna eat me like he ate the others. He's gonna fucking eat. He bared down towards her throat, drooling onto her. She could smell and feel that acrid breath. She pivots her hips, and he almost loses his advantage on her. It prevented the bite, but she was able to move her gun hand and point it at him. Her trigger finger felt foreign to her, the nerve damage only letting her feel the trigger, but not allowing her to pull it. Alan dove towards her neck again, and she brought her head up and connected with the bridge of his nose. It snapped, and fresh blood, his blood, began to ooze from his nostrils to her chin. The sharp metallic canines did graze her cheekbones and punctured the skin just under her eyes. Blood was leaking into her vision, and she thought that this was it. She had no more leverage against him, and most of her battery was spent. But he had rolled off of her, howling like a hurt dog. Gus and Quinn were barking an alert outside. She curled up her legs and straightened them to try and stand while wiping the blood from her eyes. Alan roared angrily and tried to leap at her. She fired a shot, not seeing where it landed, but it did land. It was a gut shot, and he yipped. Roberts made her way to the door and fell out over the railing of the small set of stairs. Gus and Quinn were growling and ran at her, snarling. She aimed her gun at Gus and fired. He flew backwards, and Quinn ran off into the woods. She crawled into the car and radioed dispatch. Unit 613 to dispatch, she panted. We have an officer down. 809 Cheney Lane. I repeat, we have an officer down. Dispatch answered back and was asking her status and the name of the officer that was down. A few questions about the perp, but she dropped the mic and went unconscious on the steering wheel. She didn't hear the sirens wailing and didn't see the number of black and whites that skidded into the dooryard. She didn't hear the EMTs from Alliance Medical trying to get her to respond. She didn't hear the uniforms, both in brown and blue, shouting at the house, or them breaking in the front door. She was being lifted into the ambulance, still unconscious, while they found Detective Raymond Woods lying in his own blood, his throat and face lying in bloodied, jellied flaps. He would never get to know what retirement was like. She also wouldn't know that the body of Alan Stoneway was not found. There were bullet holes that were accounted for, but no sign of the man who thought he was a wolf. It was all background noise while she dreamt. She was running through a forest with dense fog blanketing the ground. There were growls coming from behind her, and the snapping teeth, the noise getting closer and closer, and the strong smell of roses. The moon was full, lighting up Sibley State Park and the lakes within. Even though the canopy of cottonwoods blocked out the lunar light, he could still feel the pull. His skin itched constantly, and now it seemed the teeth and the claws were part of him now, not just prosthetics, but an organic part of who he was. He had proven that he didn't need the full moon to bring about the beast. It fed, it hunted, it hungered, even when the moon's without the full moon's fullness. He had fed on the creatures of the woods. Sometimes he was able to grab a lazy fish from the lakes and streams, but he ate. It ate. There was even a delectable young couple he had taken just the other night who were camping. His claws effortlessly tore through the canvas of the tent. There was more fight in the girl than there was the man. Just some college kid hoping to score in the woods, not even thinking about the chance he would be food for something so primal and feral. Tonight, his belly was full. He had finished eating the young girl. The sight of the moon made him feel lonely. He howled his loneliness to the night sky. Only the crickets and the frogs answered. He had evaded the cops, and it would be months before they'd find the campers he had just finished. Alan, the beast, leapt to the edge of a berm that looked out over a lake. The night air cool on his nakedness. The moonbeams were like waves of warmth to him. His gut throbbed with a dull pain where Roberts had shot him. He had kept it clean with lake water and moss. Thankfully, it went clean through, so there was no lead poisoning in his guts. But he knew well enough he had to keep the wound clean, and that wouldn't last long in these woods. He padded down to the lake shore and swam, letting the cool water soothe his aching joints. He spent several days on all fours. Part of his mind was beast, and the other something like a human male. When he came back, standing along the shore where there was a group of people, at first he thought they were the cops, or a posse, awaiting to capture him as he came to shore. Quickly he swam to the other side of the lake, pumping his arms and kicking his legs like a dog, huffing small gasps of air as he glided through the water. Alan didn't look back and was exhausted when he reached the opposite shore. He laid on his side, breathing heavy in the wet muck of swampy shoreline. But he knew he wasn't alone. He felt eyes on him, and he readied himself for a fight. The beast may go down, but he would do some damage before the cops had him. "Are you Alan Stoneway?" It was a woman's voice, low and throaty. It wasn't the cop's voice. It was a stranger's voice. He tried to growl, but his lungs were tired, and he coughed instead. "Relax," the woman said again. He rolled over on all fours and saw 6 people standing around him in a semicircle. There were no flashlights, and there was only the bluish glow of the moon. They were shadows. "Are you Alan Stoneway?" she asked again. "Who are you?" he asked. You're not cops? We are not, but I'm losing patience with you. One last time. Are you Alan Stoneway? Fuck off, he spat. The group became restless, shuffling on their feet, and then they began to crouch. The figure of a woman stood there as the rest of the group began to change. You are the one who claims to be the wolf of the red roses, aren't you? She said. His heart pounded now, and he was up on his haunches. You tried to contact us, didn't you? Yes, he said in a whisper. The group around her were growling, shaking off their clothing. There were barks and snarls. We came, she said. But are you a wolf or are you a man? He let out his best howl, his heart excited to have his people with him. Everyone else howled back and made his sound weak, but he felt alive, like he had never felt before. A great elation opened up inside of him, and he howled again. He had found his pack. He bounded to join them, snarling and growling. He wanted acceptance. The pack circled him, and he sat on his hindquarters and stared up at the female standing above him, silhouetted in the moonlight. Alan, she said, you have hunted and killed in the name of the lichens, on the breath of the Lou-Garou, in the guise of a werewolf. The pack howled and Alan howled back. Is this what you choose? Is this what you want? Again they howled, and again he answered. Now, I ask the pack, is this what you want? Is this what you choose? They stopped circling him, staring at him with glowing eyes and licking their fangs. Fear tickled the back of Alan's neck. The growling began, and they all bared their teeth. No, no, please, he whimpered. I want to. The first of them came and nipped him in the hindquarters. It stung and drew blood. Another darted forward and bit into his arm, taking a small chunk from it. Others began to gnaw away at his shoulders, legs, and face, fighting each other for a piece. Alan screamed at first in a howl, and then as a man. The scream brought forth even more savagery as he felt his lifeblood slip away. Soon his body was nothing but a tattered, bloody rags hanging from bones and torn muscle tissue. The pack had subsided, and the woman walked up to him. He was dying, and a tear dripped and mingled with the blood spattered on his ragged face. Do you give your throat to me, Alan? She asked softly. Give it to me freely? A blood-soaked gurgle bubbled up from his mouth, and he gasped to cough up more. Yes, he wheezed. I will give you my teeth and my jaws and my hunger. Yes. The woman transformation wasn't as violent as the others. Bone moved around inside of her. Guts sloshed around to fit her new shape. Glowing yellowed eyes stared into his lonely brown orbs. He was no longer the wolf of the red roses. He was no longer a wolf at all. He was food. He heard the snarl, and something hot and sharp bit into his throat. His windpipe gushed out air as it was ripped from his throat. Things began to fade. He could see the alpha carry off the rubbery chunk of meat while the rest of the pack closed in on him. There was a sharp jerk on his body, and everything faded black. The end. He looks hungry. Well, enjoy, Ollie. You just wait. Kevin's got to sleep sometime. Now I'm questioning how Copper looks at me. Copper's a Muppet. He couldn't hurt anybody. He couldn't hurt anybody. Well, that was a long story that lasted longer than an hour, and you guys stuck with me. So appreciate that. I hope you guys had a great Halloween. Hope you had a good time here with me, and ah, I'm glad you guys enjoyed the story. I'll have to ask Steph when I get home, see what she thinks of it. But she's not into the gore stuff and all that, so yeah, it'll be interesting. Oh, you missed it. I will. It'll be on here for a while, but after 30 days, Facebook gets rid of these live broadcasts. Um, but I will be downloading it onto YouTube tonight. So if you go to my YouTube channel, it's at Bradley Bodeker 70, and you can check it out there. I'll have it posted on there sometime by the end of tonight. So, but thank you all very much for joining me tonight. Um, look forward to putting this in a book sometime before the end of the year. That'll go in there with the Dollhouse that I read last year. So we've got plenty more stories of that to come. Anyhow, that's it for me. I'm gonna call her a night. I should be able to drive home without killing any kids on the road. I saw a guy driving down the main drag with his lights off. Tell me that's really smart to do on Halloween. Anyway, I will talk to you guys. I will. I will. Um, yes, Chuck, you have a spooky night as well. You can join Bobby and I for coffee on Sunday night. So let's check us out there. All right. Peace and a bottle of hair grease. Love you guys, and thanks again for joining me for another Halloween special. I'll have to put some effects in there or something. That ha thing. What do you think? All right. Sleep well, Kevin. There we go. There we go. Add another one for good measure.